Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our Signworld public webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here and will be moderating our session. For those of you who have never participated in one live or watched a previous recorded session, just a quick overview of what to expect for this next hour. First, we're going to have our owners introduce themselves and give you all a little background about who they are, where they're located, and their Signworld journey so far. And then we're going to turn the floor over to our participants, which are each of our prospective owner guests attending today. I will call you by name and ask you to come off of mute. And at that time, if you can just share where you're located and then quickly share what your first question is. We do ask you to keep it to a single question each time we go around. If time permits and we have time for a second round of questions, we will do so accordingly. So with that said, let's go ahead and introduce you to our panelists as our guest owners today to answer their questions or answer your questions. I'm going to go in order of time as a Signworld owner and start with our veteran, Mr. Don Conklin, to give his introduction first. Don.
I'm glad you didn't call me an old owner.
No, you're a veteran.
I feel that way. Yeah, yes, I know, Jack, it's you. Don Conklin, owner of my wife Teresa and I own Pinnacle Custom Signs. We're in Buford, Georgia, which is a northeastern suburb of Atlanta. Been in business for 13 years. Started out normal 2,000 square feet, 2 employees. We are now in 12,500 square feet, 21 employees, and looking at doing 5.5 million this year. And previous to this, my wife and I were both in telecom. Did I get them all?
I think you did. Top customer, number of square feet, number of employees.
Top customers is a storage company. They're doing about $1 million this year. And funny enough, after what happened on November 5th, I've gotten a boatload of orders for next year, which that's a good thing. And next year looks to be a pretty good year as well. So.
Awesome. Very good. All right, let's go to our next owner for an introduction. We'll go to Ben King next, our second most veteran owner on the call today.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben King. I run King Signs Graphics and Imaging in the Minneapolis market. We've been in business 8 years. I have 5 full-time employees and a couple that float back in between my part-time, and then sometimes they'll go on to freelance. But so probably I'd say 6.5 total employees. We'll do just about $1.1 million, $1.2 million this year. Got a couple of large projects here that we'll see if they bleed into next year or get closed out this year. My biggest customer is kind of the one we enjoy working with the most. So there's a company called Varsity Group, and they go to schools throughout kind of the Midwest, and then we'll do the projects for inside schools. And over the last 7 years, we've done about a little over 100 projects with them. And I think the total dollars is about $350,000. So, each invoice is in that $4,000 range, sometimes bigger. And then my background before starting this, I worked in big box retail. So I was a senior director for Target for 14 or 15 years, and then decided to do this in 2016.
Very good. I got to imagine you got Black Friday nightmares being back in retail those days.
That was there's good and bad with that, right? I mean, it was a fun couple days, and I get a lot more family time now over the Thanksgiving, which isn't always what I'm used to. Let's put it that way.
Very good. Remember, this is recorded, so hopefully your family doesn't hear that comment in the future.
I've told them that. They know that. I'm nothing if not an open book, Jeannie.
All right, that's true. Thank you, Ben, very much. All right, let's go to Jason for his introduction. Jason.
Hi, my name is Jason Randall. I own City Beautiful Signs and Graphics here in Orlando, Florida. We have been in business for 30 months, but our doors opened 25 months ago. So we just hit the 2-year mark. I'm in 2,460 square feet. I have 2 full-time employees, plus my wife and I are in the business as well. Our 2024 sales projections are 400,000 this year. Our largest customer to date is we did a rebrand of an apartment complex that turned into about $110,000 job for us. And prior to joining Signworld, I was in records management, where we did hard copy file storage. And I did that for just over 20 years.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks for that. And our last panelist for today, Jack.
I'm Jack Werner. I joined Signworld as the Signworld operation in 1995. Back then we were retail, a banner shop, yellow pages, a little different world than today. Started in 1,100 square feet with one employee. 10 years later, I was in 5,000 square feet, staff 11, doing about 1.3 million in revenue. At that time, my largest customer was a regional developer for Subway, where I did about $250,000 per year, rebranding them as they keep changing their logos. I then sold my operation, joined Ken Kin, our founder and former president, corporate office, a kind of a partnership operation to learn his end of the business, finished buying him out in March of in 2014, and have been the president and owner of Signworld until this March, when I turned it over to Dan and Jean, my son and daughter, and they're now the boss. So when I see my kids, I say, "Hi, boss." So when I answer questions today, if it goes to my experience running a business, I'll speak from there. Goes more to talk about the general population, might go from that perspective. Goes more to training and policy, I'll speak from there. And I do have to drop off at 1:45. I've got a commitment I've got to leave for, so I'll leave a little bit early.
All right, very good. Glad to have you here today, Jack. Thank you. All right, now the fun begins. We're going to turn the floor over to our guests joining today for their questions. I'm going to call you again by name. Again, please just share one question for the group at a time. Tim, you were the first to join, so you're the first up for a question. Go ahead. I see your line is unmuted and able to talk.
Yes, I guess, how did you initially structure the business and why? I mean, a C Corp, LLC, how'd you structure it?
Yeah, great question. Sometimes that's forced by the funding that you're doing. Other times it's a voluntary decision. So, Jason, let's start with you. You're the newest owner. Well, how did you organize your structure of your business?
We're a C Corp. I used the ROBS program, where I took my 401k and funded the business that way.
And just for the record, if you do funding that way, you're required by law to do a C Corp. Is that correct? So it's not by choice.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Ben, how about you?
I did not use my 401k. It's an LLC S Corp. I just took money out of investment accounts.
And if you're to do it all over again, would you do the same as an S Corp?
Yeah.
Okay. Figured that was the answer. Just adding that. Okay, very good. Don, how about you?
C Corp for the same reason. I did a ROBS program.
Okay. Jack, any comments?
Probably 90% of our operations that had a 401 use the ROBS program. The other ones have either done an SBA loan, done what Ben did, other funding, did a home refinance. But ROBS is probably the most common.
Yep, I would agree. It's also something, Tim, that we recommend you talk to your personal accountant if you do have a choice, to kind of talk through what's the best option for you. Let's go to our next participant for a question. Yota, if I can ask actually, you are unmuted already. If you can go ahead and tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Awesome. I'm in Redmond, Washington. I'm currently here temporarily on a contract assignment. I'm just curious about the business, and I don't have any questions right now. I'm just kind of joining in because I'm still working. So
No worries.
I believe my wife has questions. I don't have them right now. I'm just watching and hearing what everyone's experience has been.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you joining today, and we'll go on to another participant for a question for you to continue listening on. Brandon, if you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question.
Yeah, sure. Brandon, I'm in San Diego, California. And yeah, just be interested to hear from each of the owners, what was the main reason you left your job in corporate? And did you get what you expected? And if not, how was it different?
Great question. Sometimes it's a voluntary choice, and sometimes they didn't leave the job. Their job left them. So let's go ahead and let's start with you first, Ben. Why did you leave your corporate job, and has this experience been what you expected?
I wanted to be my own boss. So for 15 years, I had multiple layers above me, and I thought I'd have a better boss. I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, it's been great. Like the ability to control your schedule. I had young kids at the time. I mean, they're still young, but they were 4 and 5, something like that, 5, 4 and 6. And so the ability to go to all their sporting events, cart them around when need to, and kind of be able to control your schedule. Back to that kind of, the coming up in the holidays. When the wife says we're going to the in-laws for 4 days, we're going to the in-laws for 4 days, whereas before that stuff like that didn't happen. So yeah, it's been great.
Okay, very good. Don, how about you?
Same thing, want to be my own boss. It was, the timing is right. All of our kids had actually graduated from high school and almost college. So it was the right time for me and Teresa to go ahead and take the opportunity to try and do something on our own. So
And has it been what you expected it to be?
no, would never do it again. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I mean, I'm on a different continent every couple of months. So yes, I think it's pretty good. We, it's a lot, it's a lot different than what we thought it would be in a good way. So
Very good. And Jason, how about you?
I was actually a COVID refugee. When COVID hit, I was working for a large corporation, and they did a corporate restructure, and I was not part of the restructure, and that's how I ended up getting in touch with Signworld and going down this journey.
And how has it been for you so far? 2 years into it?
Well, as Don Conklin said many, many times, the first 2 years are pure hell. And we're still kind of in that 2 years. So hopefully we're getting on the back end of it, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So
Yeah. It's a lot of work starting a new business for sure. Takes a few years to get to the other side, but then all the reward comes in. Jack, any comments?
It's naive to think that your job is going to last for the rest of your life. At some point, there's somebody younger, more forward-thinking, more energetic, and cheaper than you. And it's hard to get the next job. And jobs, they could have a shorter and shorter lifespan. And so you end up with a whole bunch of off-the-job periods in your last years of working. So pulling the trigger and starting, it's not easy, but then you're in charge. It was the best decision I ever made in my life. I knew that the job wasn't going to be the end game.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to another question. Matthew, if you can take yourself off of mute, go ahead and tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question.
Hi, I'm Matthew Sirachi. I'm located in Chandler, Arizona. And I'm wondering what skills have been most important to your success in the business, do you think?
That's a great question, Matthew. Let's start with our veteran owner. Don, what would you say are the skill sets that are most essential to running a business?
I would say financial acumen to know where revenue and all your expenses are. So kind of knowing balance sheets, income statements, things like that. That's important. And then I would say project management and multitasking, because there's always a lot of balls to juggle at the same time,
Okay,
especially
very good.
early on.
Very good. Jason, how about you? What would you say are the most critical skills to be successful?
well, my background, when I first worked in the file storage industry, I worked for a small business and did that for about 17 years before he sold to a larger corporation. So if you've ever been around a small business, you know that you have to wear a lot of hats and to be able to juggle a lot of things. So that was the biggest thing that one of the main reasons why I decided to join Signworld was because you could, it's a small business setting anyway. So those skill sets definitely have helped out.
Very good. Ben, what's your thoughts?
I mean, what those guys said, like the ability you have to wear multiple hats and do multiple things. I think the ability to solve problems is crucial, because you're going to come up against some things, and you only get paid when kind of the project gets all the way to completion. And then being able to find and develop your team, because that's how you differentiate yourself. I tell people all the time, you can get signs a lot of places. And so what will make your company unique is your team, you and your team. And so when you can find those great people and develop them and put them in the right roles, like that's how your company really takes off.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Jack, your thoughts?
Hire carefully, delegate, schedule, deliver what you promise, be conversant with customers, build process and procedures.
Yeah, as everyone said, there's a lot of hats to wear, and the reality is within Signworld, we have individual owners from all different backgrounds in life, all different skill sets and strengths. And one of the things that we always talk about is building relationships and solving problems. Project management, I would agree, are probably the three things that we're always looking for in candidates. But wherever the weaknesses may be, there's a lot of training and support within the system to help complement those. So it's, kind of a blended family with lots of different nationalities and backgrounds. But at the end of the day, there's a lot to a business and a lot to think through. So great question, Matthew. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Let's go to our next participant, Yvonne. If you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question.
Sure. My name is Yvonne. I am located in Renton, Washington. And I guess one question that hasn't been covered, because everybody so far has had great questions, all same ones that I've had. So thank you guys for that. One question that I would love to get some perspective on is, have you, when you were deciding to move forward with Signworld, were there other opportunities that you were looking at? If there were, like, what were they, and why did you decide to move forward with Signworld versus another opportunity?
Great question. Let's start with you first, Ben. Did you consider any other options when you were exploring this as a business, and why did you choose Signworld?
Yeah, I worked with a franchise consultant. Some of you may have been doing something similar, or some of the owners may have done something similar. And we kind of narrowed it down. And I think the number one thing that I continue to love about Signworld is it's majority business to business. And when you get a business to consumer order or project, it's kind of almost, you do it because you want to help that person out, and not because you need it for kind of revenue and things like that. And so I've loved the fact that it's business to business, Monday through Friday. And some of the other opportunities that I was looking at were more of that, whether it's retail or storefront, and you're there, it could be there 7 days a week, or the potential to be there 7 days a week. And that's just not that's not how I've set up the business. I think I was telling somebody the other day, I think I've worked maybe 3 Saturdays in 8 years, and all of those were by choice, probably back to what I said at the beginning, where I had family in town and I pretended we had some big project that I had to knock out over the weekend. So.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Jason, how about you? What would you say is, did you explore other businesses, and why did you choose this one?
I did explore a couple of different business opportunities, but the biggest thing that, or one of the biggest reasons why I went with Signworld, is you get to be in a franchise setting, but you don't have the royalties that go along with it. And to me, that's a huge, huge factor. I'm not writing a check for, 5, 6, 7, 8% of revenue that we haven't seen yet on a monthly basis, and never will have to again. So, and again, you do get all the benefits of being in a franchise setting with all the owners and the networking that we get. Plus, you get all the benefits from the vendors for the different products that we buy from them as well.
Very good. Thank you. Don, how about you? Back to 12 years ago, did you explore other options, and why did you choose this
13. Why are you cutting me short? 13 years.
one? Are you at 13? I missed that. in your
Baker's
introduction.
dozen, okay? A little land yap in there. Now, I can hear the founder of Signworld in the back of my mind saying, it's a lifestyle business. You make your own hours, you do your own thing. It's Monday through Friday. It's business to business. I think I worked 2 Saturdays, Ben, but again, by choice. And the royalties are another big part of it. But basically, the Signworld model is this: they give you a business in a box, right? They give you the equipment, the knowledge, the know-how, the training, and the access to the network of suppliers and the network of owners. And then you can do with it whatever you want to do with it. If I walked into Jason's business or Ben's business, it'll be totally different than what my business is. And that's okay. We're all making money. you know? And that's what the beauty of it is. So it's a sign business, but it's, it's our own business. The other thing is, and Jack and I had this conversation for a long time is, if you're gonna be in a franchise, when you are part of a franchise, you're paying for the brand name, okay? If you look at the brand names in the sign industry, if you look at Signorama, Fast Signs, Signs by Tomorrow, Alpha 360, whatever, all those chains together they have less than 10% of the sign market. So there's basically no brand name you're buying into by being part of a franchise in the sign industry. And that's why the Signworld model made a lot of sense to us and continues to make a lot of sense to us. So.
Very good. Thank you, Don. I didn't know you know that metric by heart. We always talk about that with our prospective calls about the 10% aspect. So great to hear you say that. Thank you. Jack, your comments?
I'm going to tweak what Don said just a little bit. A franchise is business in a box with a set of instructions on how to put it together. Ours is a business in a box with alternative assembly instructions. You get to tweak it to your style. I think owners like the idea they put their own stamp on it. You can go to all 330 operations, you'll never see the exact same thing twice. We've allowed them to have their own rules. So our owners are, and they're called owners, not franchisees. They're a little bit more entrepreneurial than a true franchise. They want to do it their way in the end. It's a custom manufacturing, so every day is different. You get to see the results. There are beyond the no royalties, there are no rules. It's just all the benefits of a franchise without some of the restrictions.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to our next participant for a question. Brenda, if you can take yourself off of mute and go ahead with a question for the group today.
Hi, yes, thank you. I am located in Sarasota, Florida. So I hail from Minnesota originally. So I heard a few Florida and Minnesota people. But anyway, thank you for all the information you've given already. It's been very, very educational and interesting. I'm wondering about the customers. How did you find your first customers? How you continue to drum up customers? Do you do networking, advertising, etc.?
Great question. Thanks, Brenda. Let's start with our newest owner. Jason, how'd you get your first customer and how are you getting customers continuously today?
Like most of the Signworld owners, we rely heavily on our website and to drive in most of our new business. We also do a lot of networking, primarily with BNI, and that's worked out very well. I'm in a chapter, my wife's in a chapter, and so that's how we get most of our business. My website probably generates 90% of our revenue now, with 10% being repeat customers.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. Ben, how about you? How'd you get your initial customers way back in the beginning and how do you get them today?
Well, first of all, I can't believe you left Minnesota. The current temp is 20, but the feels like temp is 3. So I can't believe anyone would leave this great state. We leveraged the web hard early. So I'd say, and still to this day, probably 60%, between 60 and 70%, depending on the month, come from web with that repeat business. And I would say number of orders, my repeats are even a higher percentage of that, but sometimes that second or third order they come back for just isn't maybe quite as big as that initial sign thing that they needed. I didn't do any BNI marketing. It just wasn't for me. And I felt like I could chase clients better by leveraging the web. So from day one, we have invested heavily in Google AdWords and search engine optimization. And so we continue to leverage that today.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Don, did they have the internet back when you started?
It wasn't just yellow pages. No, when we started, it was a lot of, my first customer was my daughter-in-law's aunt's business. My second customer was my sister-in-law's charity. Third was a good friend from church's heating and air companies. So it's people that you know from a different aspect in life who might own business or know someone that owns businesses. It's a lot of networking, and then it's the web after that takes off. And then over time, you start getting repeat customers and referrals. As Jack would always say, let no customer be a dead end. Ask for a referral once you do a good job for that customer. And right now, about 86% of our business is repeat. And of the other 14%, half of that's off the web and half of it's referrals from the existing customers. So
Very good. Thank you, Don. Jack?
Before I answer, Shrey's gonna start a couple of slideshows that are gonna go on in the background. First one goes to what some of our operations look like inside and out. They're all similar, but they're each unique and different. Second one goes to what is a sign, not only what can we make with the original equipment, then what can we make through outsourcing? And then the third part of that slideshow is showing some unusual things you might not even consider as a sign. Third slideshow goes to some of our wall of fame, showing some of the larger projects. There's no audio to that, so we'll continue with questions while those are going on. Well, you have to do some networking to begin with, although Ben did it without any networking. It's a temporary thing. Most Signworld owners will do it for the first year or two, and then from there, the internet will take over, the repeats will start, and the referrals will kick in. 330 current Signworld owners, we don't have a single one that is a commissioned salesman out looking for business. What you're gonna end up with is customer service responders that are following up on leads from either repeats, referrals, or internet leads. And so the business does become pretty self-generating once it gets going.
Okay, very good. All right, let's go to our next question. Richard, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question for today.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess my question is close to the previous question I was asked in regards to staying competitive, especially with the internet and producers in China and so forth. And then Don, like in an area where Fulton, Gwinnett, and Forsyth County, there's a sign shop almost every 10 miles. How are you managing to stay competitive in the sign industry?
Great question. Always get at least one on competition. So thank you for asking it. All right, let's start with you first, Don. You are in a very populated market. You got lots of sign companies. Maybe you can tell everybody how many you think there might be in Atlanta, greater metro area. But what's your thoughts on competition, both when you first started and where you're at today?
no one can touch us. It's just simple. We're Pinnacle and they're not. It's just that simple. No. Yes, there is probably 25 sign companies within 2 miles of my location. So, but you know, you set yourself apart by, customer service and doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? I tell people a lot of time is, the difference is you're a business person running a sign company. A lot of your competition is sign people trying to run a business. So it's infinitely more difficult to run a business than it is to run a sign company. And so you're one of the people who are sign people who know the technical aspects of it, but don't know how to run it, manage cash flow or deadlines or projects or other stuff like that. And so, you being a business person, bringing your business expertise to the forefront of knowing how to run things, I don't run into competition anymore. Like I said, 86% of my customers come to me because of the fact that we look for companies that want a turnkey solution, right? They want us to handle everything for them, from design to production to installation. And if they have a new location, they want us to do the new location too. I would tell you that 35% of my revenue is outside the state of Georgia. 95% of my revenue is outside my assigned zip codes by Signworld. It's just a matter of getting started where you're at and then branching out from there.
Very good. Thank you. Ben, what would you say are your thoughts on competition, both when you first started and now today?
I will cop to that. I didn't dig too much into competition before I started, and probably didn't realize how many sign companies there are in and around my shop. Sign shops are frequent, like Don said, they're everywhere, but the work is there, and you separate yourself by having a team. And I was just talking to somebody and they were looking at starting their own business, and they gave me a call, and I said, the competition is there in signs as it is in every other business. And I looked at it, kind of go back to when I first started. There was no job or opportunity that I had where I was like, oh, there's no competition, that's why I'm going to do it. When I look at competition and I look at how many sign shops there are, I also look at that from the standpoint of that means there's a lot of people that need signs. And if I get in and I do it right and I have the right team, they're going to keep coming back. I mean, Don's repeat is amazing. That every one of us can get to that point too. I tell people this all the time. When they call you for that first sign and you knock it out of the park, they call you again. Like they don't go back onto the Google and research sign shops. Like, no, you're their sign guy. I have had the same accountant for 10 years. Why? Because he's done me right. He hasn't screwed it up. And so I'm not going to Google and find a new accountant. And people that need signs do the exact same thing. And so, competition should not be the reason that scares you off. You should almost look at it as an opportunity that if you do it right, you're going to drive competition out of business.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Jason, your thoughts?
With the competition, as you guys are going through this process now, Jack told me to call 10 sign companies and to see how, if they would respond. And so I called 10 companies. He told me that, 1 or 2 might answer the phone. You'll leave voicemail for the other 8, and 1 or 2 might call you back. Out of those 10 companies, nobody called me back. I didn't talk to a single person. So that told me that the customer service side of this industry is abysmal, and it is. One of the first things that I heard when I was going through this as well with the webinars is Don Conklin saying there's 3 things you need to do to be a successful sign company: answer the phone, answer the phone, answer the phone. And it's as simple as that.
It's amazing people actually listen to me. I'm amazed people listen to me. So, but hey, Jeannie, quick story though. So to that point, and I'll be quick. So we had this customer that called us. They were coming into the Atlanta market called Phantom Fireworks. They called me on a Friday. They were opening up 3 store locations in Atlanta. I went ahead and did all the site surveys on Friday, had proofs to them on Monday, had a price to them Monday afternoon, had a $35,000 check in my hand by Wednesday. So after we installed the signs, I asked the guy what happened. He goes, well, I called 5 or 6 people on Monday. I mean, on Friday when I called you. By the time anybody called me back, I'd already told Treasury to cut you the check for the signs that you had already designed for me. But that's how quick it gets.
Yeah, being very responsive is key for sure. Thank you, Don. Jack, your thoughts?
Most sign companies are owned by a former sign maker who saved up their nickels to buy their own equipment, but they're single task focused. That's why they don't show up for the appointment, why they don't deliver the quota as promised, why they don't deliver the project on time, on budget. So we're doing the opposite. We're bringing people, we're taking an industry that's been around since the Stone Age, petroglyphs for signs, bringing in people that have been in the corporate world and understand customer interface, understand scheduling, understand delegating, understand having systems. And we become the anomaly.
Yeah, very good. All great comments there. All right, let's go to the next participant for a question. And I hope I say your name correctly. Is it Noichi or Nouchi? You can come off of mute.
Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
Thank you. It's Nucci, and thank you for that. It's a lot of the questions that I had were answered by some of the prospective owners on this call, and I would appreciate everyone for providing the information. Just want to ask an additional question regarding, your return on your investment. Has it met your expectations? And if it has, how long did it take you to come to that conclusion about, the investment that you've made in this business?
Yeah, great question, and want to make sure this is answered I shouldn't say correctly, but uniformly, because I think this question's asked often, and sometimes it's not always answered as precisely as it can be. So owners, let's carve it this way. If you can recall, when did your business become cash positive? In other words, the expenses were being covered by the sales of the business. When were you able to start pulling any money for yourself as a salary or a draw? And then looking at the true ROI, when do you feel you've fully paid back your Signworld investment, if you're there yet? And I know for Jason, he might not be there yet, being only 2 years in, but for the others, I believe you've obviously achieved that. So as you're all thinking about that, I'm going to go to Don first, because he always knows his numbers on like the back of his hand. So let's start with you, Don.
Break even month number 2. paying myself a decent salary month number 6, probably recoup my Signworld investment 2.5 years in. Here in year 13 at $5.5 million in revenue, I'm making a 20% net. That's after taxes. So most people can probably do the quick math on how much I'm making on my initial $200,000 investment in Signworld. So
Very good. Thank you, Don. Ben, let's go to you next.
We were cash positive a couple, probably month 2, month 3, and then had a couple months. I'd say consistently cash positive within the first 9 months. I probably didn't pull a salary out for close to 2 years, consistent salary. You know, I would continue to run expenses through. But as far as pulling money out consistently, putting it in my own personal checking account was probably 18 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. You know, the return on your investment, if you're just looking at it from just a dollars perspective, that was probably 2.5, a little over 2.5 years. But in some of that, though, I look at it from a lifestyle perspective and work-life balance, like that if you could put monetary on that, it was much sooner.
Okay, very good. Jason?
This year we'll just barely break even for the business. I am taking a small salary out only because my wife is working here more often, you know, a little bit more than part-time. She still has her job as well as a flight attendant for Southwest, so we still have that money coming in. And that's the only reason why I'm actually pulling money out of the business. If I didn't pull my salary out, we would actually be cash flow positive to the tune of about $20,000 this year. But again, we're still a little bit behind. So, but we're on the path that Signworld puts out for us with the pro forma. They take a national average of all the owners, and we're pretty much on track with that. So that's the great thing about Signworld, is the fact that they give you the guardrails to stay in, and if you stay in the guardrails, you should be pretty successful with this little adventure.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. Jack?
You know, I'll let Jean answer it from the surveys that she's done to get more of the pooling. But we really recommend that you set aside, in any business you're looking at, you need to set aside about a year's worth of backup monies to supplement years 1 and 2, and hopefully by that time you're back to corporate numbers and going beyond. Many people don't look at ROI until they sell the business. Just like when you buy your house, that's when you recoup it. They're building a big nest egg, so the business is selling for multiple what you paid for it.
Yeah, I think my comment would be tailing on to that, what you just said, Jack. You know, the ROI needs to also take into consideration the value of the business when you sell it, which you won't know until you sell it. And although you're putting a sizable investment in upfront, owners have commented about not having ongoing royalties and things of that nature allow you to get to that ROI a little faster. But for every individual, it's a different story because you have different visions. You might want to be looking to build a smaller business and have just a small staff. You might want to have a bigger business like Don's. So, I encourage you to talk to each of us on the team and your personal needs, and we can help you kind of identify based on the average expectations what that looks like for you individually. But great question, and appreciate all the owners giving their feedback there. Let's go to our next guest, Patrick. If you can go ahead and come off mute and share with the group where you're located, and go ahead with the question for today. Oh, it looks like Patrick dropped. My apologies. I must have had to get off. Let's open the floor now. I think I've asked every participant at least one opportunity to ask a question. If you want to go ahead, on the very bottom of your screen, you can raise your hand, or you can just unmute your line and I'll know you have another question. And I see 2 already. So Tim, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, circling back on Jason and Don's comment about the first 2 years being hell. What one thing would you do differently in those first 2 years?
Well, we always want to set the right expectation up front, Tim. If you think it's easy to start a business, it's not so easy, but we're all here for you for sure. But great question. So,
hey, Tim, I don't care if you're opening up a burger joint, a retail space, or a sign company, it will be 2 years of hell. And the reason why it's 2 years of hell is because you don't know what you don't know. I don't know what business you're in right now, but you've probably been doing it for 20 years and you're probably an expert in every area of the business that you're in right now. When's the last time you did signs? I never did signs previously, right? So it's not as much of I had a lot of fun in the first 2 years, don't get me wrong, but it was hell because I didn't know what I didn't know. After you start doing a third or a fourth set of electric, channel letters or a monument sign or a car wrap, it gets a little bit easier and you know what to expect. But you don't know what to expect up front. And you're also trying to build the client base up so that you have repeat business. So again, it's not just Signworld, it's any business you start. And I give the same advice when I give advice at chamber meetings when other people starting businesses in other industries. It's just a matter, just be prepared for it, right? Because once you get through it, you look back on it and say, wow. And I'm glad to hear that Jason said, yeah, I still am in the 2 years of hell. There might be a light at the end of the tunnel, Jason, but unfortunately, some people get into this business or any business with a Pollyanna that because maybe you've been successful in everything you've done in your corporate life. Because I know I was, but at the end of the day, it's not walk out the door and all of a sudden start writing checks and making money. It's a matter of building the business up from zero because you're starting at zero, literally. So,
Yep. So to the question, what would you do differently starting all over to make it less of a challenge? We'll say challenge instead of your 4-letter
I don't
word.
think there's anything I could have done different. I might have marketed a little bit early, but besides that, nothing because you just got to live through it. Right. It's like, how do you live through the first 2 years of having a newborn, right?
Mhm.
You bury them and dig them up at 3 years old, and maybe they have been potty trained and stuff like that. You just can't do it. You have to live the experience, right?
All right, Don, that's going to go down as another Donism that we're going to repeat over and over again. It's like having a newborn. I love it. Ben, how about you? What would you say are the first couple years like, and how could you make it different or better or easier if you were to start all over again?
Man, I don't know. I didn't find it to be hell. I felt like it was a never-ending experience of learning, and that you would win a job and you'd think you were going to make the earth, moon, and the stars out of it, and you'd get done with it at the end, and you're like, oh, that was not nearly as profitable because we had to redo this, or I misquoted this, or something happened, and so that kind of constantly learning, and I think that the 2 years of constant challenges slowly becomes the occasional day or the occasional week, right? Like I'll give you 2 months ago, we had a rough week that we shouldn't have had. And we made some mistakes and we had to get through those couple of weeks. But then you go 4, 5, 6 months and it's kind of quote unquote smooth sailing. And then you'll have another hiccup. And so what would I do differently? I don't think I would do anything differently. Let me rephrase that. I was really good to hire my second employee. I hired that second employee ahead of need, and that was really beneficial. And it took me a long time to repeat that learning. Where my third employee, I hired him too late, and my fourth employee, I hired him too late. And so that very learning that I gave myself, and I was very proud of myself early on, I did not apply that as much as I should have. So I would say I would have hired ahead of need and looked at my sales like almost in shorter windows when you're growing, right? So like what's my last 3-month trend? If I had that 3-month trend for a whole year, how many employees should I have? Get to that number, right? And then versus like, oh, the last 6 months, I still only need one. Yeah, but what about the last 2 months? Because then if the last 2 months, if you multiply that by 12 and you needed 2 or 3 employees, get that employee. And I did that well on employee number 2, but 3, 4, and 5, I was slower to hire than I should have been.
Very good. Great advice. Thank you, Ben. Jason?
Well, when I say that, it's 2 years of hell, it's because, again, it's what Don was saying, that you just don't know what you don't know. The fact that you're drinking from that fire hose for the first year, I mean, it's just an absolute blur. You think you're smart until you open your own business, and I forgot more than I can remember now. The great thing about being part of Signworld is I haven't had a original thought for anything for the most part because I can plagiarize everything. and which makes it a lot easier. But you know, you're learning to do your own accounting. You know, you're learning to do project management and learning what a difference between a channel letter sign and a monument sign is at the same time. So, you know, it's almost like going back to college. I've told people that many times where these first 2 years, it's like paying tuition to get your education into the sign business. But once you do some of these projects, they become a little bit easier and a little bit more streamlined. And so.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. The only comment I'll add to that is, you know, our personal recommendation is to stay involved, stay actively involved in all the training sessions that are available. There's more now than we've ever had before. We continuously keep adding. And I think the owners who stay engaged and keep learning actively from others on a daily, weekly basis, you know, they're able to take advantage of not only their own personal learning from the business and their own experiences, but hearing from others, which will help prepare you for, you know, the path ahead. So I think staying engaged and involved in training, and to the points that the owners just said, be able to persevere and be determined and confident in your long-term success, because the first couple of years are definitely challenging in any business you start. All right, let's go to another participant for a second question. Brenda, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. And again, thanks for all the good information. What is your experience like, or what are the difficulties with, as you say, project managing between the manufacturer, the installer, the shipper, you know, all of how complex does that get?
Great question. So back to one of the key skills of a great owner is having good project management and be able to juggle a lot of tasks. So Ben, let's go to you first. What would you say, you know, talking about all those key components, ordering your products, you know, where you're sourcing, you know, how complex is that? And what do you do to manage it? Like what kind of systems do you have in place to keep your business on track and make sure you're meeting your due dates and everything else?
Well, I'll tell you that one of the advantages of starting with Signworld, and it maybe doesn't always think, you don't probably always think of it as an advantage, is when you start with one employee and, you know, a customer base of 5 or 6, not a lot of it comes at you to what overwhelms you, right? You can kind of work through that first month, that first 6 months, that first year, where you're keeping up with that and you're figuring out kind of some of those processes, right? Like if I took over Don's shop day one, I would get overwhelmed because we're juggling $5.5 million of stuff, and I probably I'm ill prepared for that, right? But that's not how, you don't start at 5.5 million. Don't start at $1 million. You start at, you know, your goal that first year is probably 300,000, 250,000, somewhere in that range, right? And so you can kind of learn some of that. We have a couple of tools from a customer CRM perspective that my team uses. Trello is one of them. We have a board out there from a production installation that we took from another Signworld owner in California that you can kind of correspond. Okay, this is installing on Wednesday, and there's a cross reference of when that has to be done and through production. And then material wise, I haven't really ever automated any of that. I still run all of that. I enjoy kind of knowing what's coming in, what my team needs. But we'll do some things once every couple weeks where my production team and I walk and we just make sure that we've got good inventory, or they'll come to me with, hey, this is what's kind of low, so we get ahead of some of that. But none of that is quite automated to maybe the level that it would need to be at an even larger sign shop than I am.
Okay, very good. Jason, how about you? How would you say from a, you know, complexity perspective, and how do you manage that?
I echo what Ben just said on that. You know, we're still small enough that we can manage the projects that are coming through with Corebridge and with Trello. I do the same thing that Ben does. I'm the one that orders all the stuff that comes through, because I do enjoy that. I actually enjoy beating up the vendors for the different prices. And pit them against each other to get, you know, because it's not what you sell the product for, it's what you pay for the product is where you make your money. And because us being in Orlando, we've got most of our vendors here locally, and you can get all that stuff delivered either the same day or next day. So we don't keep a lot of inventory in-house. We just don't need to. So but getting back to the project management, right now we've got 25 different projects that are in different stages, but not everything needs to be looked at on a daily basis. You've got stuff in permitting, so it's, a couple of weeks out before we have to even worry about the fabrication side of anything. So, again, I echo what Ben just said on, me jumping into Don's thing, I'd be like a fish out of water. But where we're at, we're doing just fine, and we're growing the where we need to be growing to be successful, I think.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. Don?
But I think you grow into it. Right now with my staff, I have people that handle that for me. The other thing though is, and Ben and Jason will get into this eventually, is, when you start off, you're printing, you got a printer and a laminator and a cutter. So that's what you're doing, and you're outsourcing everything else. As you get bigger, you wound up bringing in machinery to insource the stuff that you were outsourcing and then take control of production. So you have less vendors to worry about relative to how you're going to get product. Every time we've decided to buy a piece of equipment and bring a capability inside, whether it's dimensional letters or electrical signs or anything else like that, we've done it not from a cost saving standpoint, but from a delivery of product standpoint to the customer. So we can control the means of production and the delivery timelines for those products for the customers. And the more you can bring in under your roof, the less issue you have with the project management, because it's all happening within your building. Again, that took us 8 to 10 years to get to that point, but that's eventually where we wanted to get, so that we were we had one throat to choke, and it was our own, quite frankly. So.
Very good. And I'll just add a quick comment. I think that's back to the question previously about, running an efficient and effective sign company. A lot of it comes down to having good systems, processes, and procedures in place so you can manage, 25 projects like Jason is at one time. Or Don, I want to know, how many projects do you have in your queue right now?
We've probably got 75 to 100 and different various, from either from design or through permitting to installation. So it just, depends on the day of the week. It'll slow down in December though.
Right. Hopefully. But the point is, having a good system that can show you, okay, here's the leads that are in the door that we need to get quotes out to. Here's the quotes that are out that we need to follow up on. Here's where we're waiting for a deposit. Having like good project management systems to make sure that you're keeping track of everything is important, as is making sure your team is doing the right things. Ben made a comment about his team being the differentiator, and having everybody dialed into the right activities, organized through production meetings in the morning or just whatever's needed is one of those key components to make sure you're managing the business effectively. But having good systems in place is critical, and that's a key component. All right, we have another hand up with Brandon. So let's go ahead and ask you to come off of mute and go ahead with your question, Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Hey, I've heard a bit about the upside of the lifestyle, but also in contrast with the first 2 years of the grind. Just curious to hear how many vacations did you go on in your first 2 years, and then if your past 2 years, what does unplugged look like when you get to enjoy time off now?
All right, well, we're going to save the best for last. So Don will be last because he's unplugged more than he is plugged in, I bet, but we'll wait there. Jason, have you and Mary Lauren taken a vacation yet?
We have. The great thing about this industry is I don't want to say it's seasonal, but it is kind of seasonal. In July, a lot of things slow down, and in December, a lot of things slow down. And the reason why is because the decision makers and the ones that are actually purchasing these large signs, they're on vacation. So you're able to get away, and again, it is only Monday through Friday. So I even the first couple of years, yes, I've come in here on a Saturday, but it's because I wanted to catch up on just making sure I knew what I was doing. It wasn't by necessity, by any stretch. So, but yes, we have been able to take vacations.
Okay. Ben, how about you?
I wouldn't say that my vacations changed much at all from when I was in corporate America. My wife and my kids, still want to take vacations, whether their dad runs a sign company or not. And so it was either take the vacations and join them, or they're going to go without me. Yeah, so I think that, back to what Jason said, it's Monday through Friday. You can occasionally take long weekends, things like that. I play a fair amount of golf in the summer, and so I'm not here too many Friday afternoons. And then when you're on vacation, your ability to unplug is how good your team is. And so trust me, there's been plenty of vacations I've taken that I didn't unplug at all. And I was on my laptop every morning, making sure that the team was doing the right things. And I have 2 employees on my team right now that, it's probably more efficient at times when I'm not here than when I am. So.
Love that. Thank you, Ben. All right,
Mhm.
Don, when was the first time you took vacation and how unplugged are you now?
Teresa and I took our 30th anniversary cruise 4 months into the business. We've consistently taken vacations. Now we take 12, 13 weeks of vacation every year, maybe more than that. I don't work Fridays. I'm not in the office on Fridays. I'll take that back. But to Ben's point, on my phone, I can manage my entire business. I actually managed my business from Antarctica last year on my phone because I can check my point of sale system. I can check my GPS system. I can check my cameras. I can check my bank accounts. I can check everything. As long as my people are doing the right thing, it's not going to be an issue. Plus, we haven't mentioned it yet, but I have a little secret weapon, which is I have 2 of my sons who actually help run the business for me. So they have a little skin in the game as well.
Yep, definitely a family business there with the Conklins. All right. Well, I don't see any other hands raised. I'll wait one. Oh, I saw Yvonne just came off of mute. Go ahead, Yvonne. You'll have the last question today.
Yeah, I really wanted to explore a little bit more about the family aspect. I heard a couple of the owners mention family involved, and I wanted to get, kind of a perspective on benefits of having family involved. Is all the family local? Are they, involved in like in-office production? Like, how does that work for you guys?
Well, you assumed it was a good thing. I mean, there could be some negatives about working with your family. But...
And yes, that is true. Could be
I'm just teasing.
negative, which is what I was trying to parse out a little bit as well.
Well, as you can tell on these calls, we talk about everything, the good and the bad. It's a full open forum. So Don obviously has his sons in the business, so I'll let him answer first. Don, what would you say are the pros and cons, and do they have to be local? Can you see having a family member be part of the business that wasn't? Go ahead and answer the question.
I mean, to me, everybody's got to be in the office. I mean, that's just maybe old school from my standpoint, but I have 4 sons. My son, Matt, who's my 3rd son, actually started the business with me. He went to the original Signworld training with me. He just graduated college. So I call him employee number 3 after me and Teresa. He calls himself employee number 1. So, I mean, I defer to him at that point in time. 2 years later, my youngest son, Stephen, joined the business. And I have 2 other sons that are older than those 2. I've given them the opportunity to come into the business. They want nothing to do with the business and with their brothers, which is fine. It's what it is. But it's interesting because, when we get along, we get along. When we don't get along, we don't get along. Right. You always have that thing hanging over your head of, you better not screw it up too bad or else Thanksgivings will be really, really difficult. But right now, it's a nice even split. Stephen is running sales and design, which is, pre-sales, and Matt's running production and installation, which is post-sales. So they basically divide the business between themselves, and they both work for me. And Teresa's just doing HR kind of work from home. But I would tell you that being being able to turn your business over to your children. I mean, it's pretty rewarding. Steven's done it. Yeah, speaking of which, say hi, Steven.
My ears are ringing.
Yeah, Steven's done a great job.
Hi, everybody.
He sold, how much you
Hi,
sell last
Steven.
year? How much you sell year to date?
Year to date, 2.6.
Yeah, 2.6. Yeah, he told me he's selling more than me. And
Enough to keep Dawn on a boat all the time.
so he said 2.6. He goes, I sold more than you. I said, you should.
Because he's working more weeks of the year than you are.
You know what can I say? But yeah, I would say if you can find the right family and familial relationships and people work together well, it works out great. But you know, again, if your family's not getting along, it's not going to work out in the business either, right?
Yeah, very good. All right, Ben, your kids are, I'm doing the math here, 10 and 12 now from the time you started. Are they in the business with you? How do you
Oh,
envision it?
so my math was bad on the front end. My youngest just turned 13 on Sunday, so they're 13 and almost 15.
Okay.
And Don said that when you find the right family, it works well. I haven't found the right family. So no other king sets foot in here. My wife runs, you know, she's the boss at home. I don't need her being in here, being my boss here. I got to be in charge somewhere.
All right, very good. Jason, you work with your wife. Talk about that dynamic, as well as if you had family, would you include them, and how would that work for you?
I do have a 15-year-old daughter, and she doesn't want anything to do with this because we're her parents. Pretty much the bottom line on that one. But it works out very well having Mary Lauren here in the office. You know, that was one of the main reasons why we decided to go down this road and open our own business, is to get her off the road a little bit more. Being a flight attendant, you know, she's gone, you know, 3 days at a time, and she just wanted to be home with our daughter. She's able to go home and pick her up from school on a daily basis, and so it's given us that freedom. But no, it's great having her in the office. You know, she does sales, and she's good at coming up with different marketing schemes and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I'm very fortunate to get along with her, and we can make it work. But yeah, I would agree with Don. If it's bad, it's going to be real bad.
Yeah.
If I can just jump back in, I think, you know, Jeannie mentioned earlier that, or Jack mentioned that no two sign companies are alike. And a lot of people are a tag team, you know, a husband and wife, or in Don's situation, he's got his wife and 2 children in there. Like, there's a lot of us that don't have any, right? And it doesn't, you know, one way is no better than the other. And you can be successful in kind of any way that you set it up. And so, you know, I joke with my kids all the time. They write their little, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always cross it out and say sign owner. And my oldest still wants to play in the NHL. I think he's got a better chance of running a sign company, but I'm not going to be the one that crushes that dream for him. And so I just don't want you to think that because you don't have your spouse in there with you that you can't be successful.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And I'll wrap up the question and say that over 50% of our operations have a single run individual running the business with no spouse, no children, etc. The other 40% have, you know, whether it's father, son, daughter, son, you know, a business partner of any kind. That's what consists of our population. So definitely can be run solo, like Ben mentioned, but there's a lot of others that do it differently. So with that, we are over time, and I want to be considerate of our owners' time as well as everybody else's, and wrap up for today. So Jason, Ben, and Don, thank you all very much for being part of our session today and sharing your thoughts and perspectives. We really appreciate each of you. So thank you. And to our prospective attendees and future owners potentially, appreciate your interest in learning more about Signworld. On behalf of the corporate team, we look forward to the additional conversations to help you identify if this is the right next chapter in your life, and look forward to those decisions that you need to make. But we're here for you to answer questions along the way. And with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Happy holidays. Stay safe, stay healthy, and be blessed. So thank you all. Have a good one.